That's your boy Gooch.
That, of course, is the homie Keys.
And this is the RogueHead Huddle with Gooch and Keys presented by RGR Football. Gooch?
We appreciate all you guys who come to watch us and watch RGR content. Make sure to go back and look at the other videos under the RGR on YouTube banner. Check out the merchandise store, which got a lot of great things in it. The live stream on Mondays, Chief in the North on Thursdays. There's a lot of film breakdown. Of course, you've got us. And take this walk with us, guys. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but I got the Brendan Daly beard going on here.
I see that.
I don't know if this is a good thing or not. I was watching Coach Vass the other night to his breakdown of the Chiefs' defense against the Steelers, and one of the things that he was constantly pointing out is how often our defensive line was getting like gummed up, like they were not doing their jobs, which is kind of just, it's kind of concerning. 16 weeks into this season, that our defensive line isn't doing its job, or if it is doing its job, its job is apparently to just gum things up. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into some happy conversation here.
I'd like to point out that since you shaved and started growing the beard back, the Chiefs have won 8 games in a row. I just want to point out there that the regrowth of the beard coincided with the winning streak. I believe on Twitter, somebody said people were too superstitious, and you made a comment about the cookies. I'm going to make a comment about the beard. I think you should keep growing it, brother, all the way to the Super Bowl, baby.
Well, I mean, as you pointed out, I did have a beard before, so I don't know if this is some kind of twisted reverse Samson type of thing or not, but the cookies is a real thing. So what Gooch is talking about is cookies from the Cookie Society. So if you haven't checked them out, be sure to check out the Cookie Society, started by Jeff Allen, former Chief, and his wife. And so awesome cookies. I actually have some in my room over here, but I don't want to sound like Ryan and Chris Clark when they're doing their Built Bar or whatever promotions on here. So anyway.
Thoughts on the beat downstairs. Before we get into that, I need to, because you guys are going to see this on Friday. I just want to put out there from me and Keys, our condolences to the Madden family. By the time you're seeing this, he passed. And yes, he was the coach of the Raiders. Yes, it was our job to hate him. But the impact that he had on the NFL and on generations of video gamers with the Madden franchise and all the commentary and stuff, truly a great man. So my condolences, I'm sure from me and Keys both, our condolences to the Madden family. Truly a good man, great man, and he'll be missed. Keys?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I'm not old enough to have actually seen Madden coach. Like, John Madden in my lifetime was the Skadoodle guy and the video game guy. And so, I've kind of been reflecting and wondered, with my anti-Raiders bias, like, if I had been alive long enough to see him as Raiders coach, how that might have, like, influenced those other two things, kind of like in the way that Troy Aikman sucks. But yeah, John Madden will be missed, and so, right on. All right, that said.
Okay, so my thoughts on beating the Steelers. I think that's probably the most complete beatdown that we've done on a team, not named the Raiders, which I want to point out again. The Raiders won, guys. So I'm going to tap into my Daniel Harms here. It is what it is. No, but really, the Raiders are a decent team, but the Big Ben is a Hall of Fame quarterback that knows how to win. And before we beat them, and I know that maybe I'm the only one, but when we were up what was it, 28, 35-3, 35, 30 nothing at half. We were up pretty big, but the Steelers were down 29 the previous game and came back and won. Like these things,
Right.
they have been down 20 plus points in the last 5 games and have made a game of it. So I wasn't comfortable until the start of the fourth when I knew they couldn't put up 35 in 15 minutes. So to handily beat a Mike Tomlin team, the guy who's never had a losing season in 14 years as an NFL coach, Big Ben, whether you like him or hate him, is a Hall of Fame quarterback, no matter how you slice it. Good running back with Najee. Claypool, obviously, if you watch that game, there's talent there because some of them catches he made were unbelievable. Like, I couldn't believe he came down with them. So I am thoroughly happy. I'm also happy that Patrick got to come out, that a lot of our defensive linemen got to come out and get some light on the backups. Great to see DOD in there sticking people. Armani Watts was in there. The line stayed on a little longer, which obviously works for continuity, but it was also the number one thing I took away from it. It was great to see Patrick have to rely on somebody other than Hill and Kelsey. Now, obviously, we don't want anybody with COVID. We don't want anybody sick. That's across the NFL. We don't wish that on anybody because it's rough. But the fact that Tyreek was only thrown to twice, there was no Kelsey, and it was Pringle and Gray, and I think Josh Gordon had a couple catches. And aside from DeMarcus running backwards, he was in there too. It's good to see him building that natural rapport with receivers when it gets to the nitty gritty and people do like Tampa Bay did, which was double Kelsey, double Tyreek. You're not getting the holding calls. There's always somebody there that can get open. So I'm actually satisfied with this one. Not really a lot to nitpick.
Yeah. I mean, there's always nits to pick, but yeah,
Well, yeah.
it was a good, heart healthy win in what leading up to it might have been, a little concerning with all the players out with COVID. And I know last week when we did our video that someone dropped something in the comments, about us all worrying too much. The three of us, Sean being our guest, all of us worrying too much. And they actually did have a really close score prediction in their comment, but at the same time, it doesn't take away from what I said, and that's that, any given Sunday is not just a cliche. And as Gooch pointed out, the Steelers had did this like 3 or 4 weeks in a row and against playoff teams as well. And so, I mean, this is nothing to. I mean, we were all Steelers fans a week ago for this reason, right? Like, some of us were watching the last game they played because it ended up helping the Chiefs out. So, I mean, there's justification there. Yeah, going back and having watched some of the film, Big Ben actually made some pretty good throws, and Deontay Johnson and Claypool, like you said, were making some really good catches. There was one on the sideline. I know when we were watching, I think you might have been in there for it. We were watching the All 22. We had the All 22 watch party last night on the Discord, and we were going through just that amazing throw and catch by both Ben and Deontay Johnson there on the sideline. Like Hughes read it the whole way. He had his eyes on Ben. He had the receiver. He had Johnson right there. He was right in front of Johnson. He leaps up, right at the perfect time. He's just not quite tall enough. At least not as tall as Johnson. Like, Ben placed it perfectly. Johnson got a great catch, and he managed to get his feet in right at the sideline. And, like, some of those plays, you just got to tip your hand to the other team because, I mean, these guys are professionals too. There were on defense. I know a lot of people were bummed that we gave up a garbage time touchdown. I've heard some people say, Spag started actually blitzing more towards the end when the Steelers were trying to get that touchdown instead of, just letting the clock run out against his backups, which, you like to see from Spags that he's fighting for them. I also thought it was kind of interesting that even though we were in garbage time, Sorensen and Neiman, and I guess to an extent Thornhill, were still out there when most of the starters had been pulled. Um, if I recall correctly, percentage-wise, Frank and Chris they only played about half the snaps in the game. And so, that helped them to stay fresh. Even if we have to play our starters week 18, I think some of these games lately have allowed them to stay fresh. And so, that might be a benefit to us because this is kind of the game that we talked about last week, right? This is what you kind of wanted to see, where they were pulling starters earlier and getting some of these guys in so we could get a look at DOD or Watts. I think this was the game that DiCaprio Budo actually ended up leading the team in tackles, if I'm recalling correctly. And so, getting some of these younger guys in there, Josh Jackson, I think, got 9, 10, 11, 12 snaps or so. So some of these guys that were on the practice squad, some of these guys, we're able to get a look at them. And so I think Henny's fumbling issues were kind of concerning. Like, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, what was that about?
Like, what, 2 or 3 straight snaps? Like, what's going on? I still would have liked to seen, some Shane Buechele in there. I mean, this was like the perfect time, right? I don't remember. He might not even been activated for this game. But, again, this would have been like the perfect game to get Pat out midway through the third quarter and let this kid get 20 minutes of, game time against a real team in a real regular season game and just, seeing what happened there. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that I want to nitpick about. It's still, Spags has been doing this thing lately where he will either have Matthew look like he's the second deep safety, and then Matthew will creep in, and then Sorensen will go out. And I understand why he's doing it. We talked about it before, I think a few weeks ago. Sorensen's great blitzing, playing near the line. Sorensen and Neiman are great at preoccupying blockers. Neiman's able to tip balls into Sorensen's hands, things like that. And so, occasionally you want to keep the defense honest by dropping them into zone so that they can't just think, okay, well, Sorensen's on the field, he's going to be blitzing this play. But they've been kind of doing it a lot where, one, Sorensen isn't really athletic enough, so he's tipping, the coverage early on because he's having to break into his deep zone because he's lined up at like linebacker, like he's going to blitz, and then he has to drop all the way back into his deep zone. So he's having to start that way earlier because he's not as quick as, someone like Juan or Tyron or Snead or Hughes or these guys, which to me kind of defeats the purpose of it. But, I mean, I guess if the whole point is, you just want the quarterback to pre-snap to not know if Sorensen's blitzing or if he's going to drop into too deep, But, I mean, it's still only basically 2 options. It's one or the other. And if you got surprised by seeing Sorensen in man coverage, I mean, what does Spags expect? That the quarterback's going to get so happy that he freaks out and messes up? But, I mean, we're nitpicking here. I still would have liked to seen more Gore. We did have the Gore drive, though, in the second quarter, right, where it was like 5 or 6 plays. 2 runs and 3 passes, if I recall correctly, including the 51-yard pass. So, I mean, that was exciting. We had some good carries by Clyde. We had some good carries by Darryl. We had some, in my opinion, very dumb runs by Clyde where he had cutback lanes and he was running for small holes that, like, he doesn't have the speed to get to. But again, these are all kind of nitpicky things, and so, I thought Gray looked pretty good. Bell looked pretty good. Pringle. We talked about last week, even if Hill and Kelsey didn't get to go, that at least the whole week in practice, Mahomes was forced to throw to these other guys, and we got to see it in the game too, because Hill only had 2 catches, if I remember correctly. So, all of these types of things are great for us moving forward. And so those were my positives. Some little nitpicking. I'm going to do some more nitpicking here in a second, but I'm going to give you the last word as far as the game.
No, overall, like you said, there's things that we can nitpick, like the fact that Patrick isn't planning with his left foot when he goes to throw on certain throws. He's doing it like a baseball player trying to turn a double play. But I mean, you have to be satisfied, I would think. So I'm not going to nitpick too hard on this one.
All right, yeah, and I get what you're saying there. I'm starting to wonder if some of that isn't by design, like they're having him drag that toe so his foot, he's not lifting his foot up, if that makes sense. It almost looks more like a first baseman trying to make sure that he stays on the bag, when he's receiving a throw. And so, I don't know.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it just kind of seems a little weird, but I'm wondering if that's not kind of a cueing thing that they've given him to try to make sure that he's not lifting that right foot off, which is, it's still indicative of a mechanical, of a throwing issue, but it almost seems like that's more of a side effect of something else they're trying to correct. But I don't know. I don't know anything about quarterback mechanics. Just a little bit about cueing. So anyway, this still segues into our next topic here, and that's getting real about the coaching staff. We want to try to keep this balance, but people have been all over the place the last couple of weeks. Of course, we've all been all over the place this whole season with the up and downs of the season, and there's some people out there who have been like, you should have had faith in the coaching staff the whole season, or, the coaching staff has been doing great the whole season. There's a whole lot of different takes out there right now. And it feels like maybe we've done this topic before. But hopefully we can kind of hit the middle ground here, because some people want to act like this coaching staff is above and beyond reproach, that they don't make mistakes, that everything they're doing has worked or been smart. And I think I've made this analogy before, but I don't know how many. Gooch, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie Backdraft. And I don't know how many viewers have watched the movie Backdraft. I think it's from about 1995, I think.
Yeah, I've watched it.
But the basic premise of it, spoiler alert here, if you haven't seen it and you plan to see it, I don't know what to tell you here, because I'm going to basically spoil the whole movie here, because this is basically my interpretation of Spags to a T this year. In the movie, one of the firefighters is setting fires so that they can put out the fires and be heroes. Right? That's basically what Spags did this season. And I'm not saying he did it intentionally, but there are people out there giving Spags praise for putting out fires that he started. Literally started by starting Sorensen over Thornhill, among other things that he was doing, like playing Jones on the outside. And so, it's hard for me to praise the guy for putting out his own fires, is what I'm saying. I guess I will praise him for finally, with enough national media scrutiny and local Kansas City reporters constantly asking week after week, about starting Sorensen over Thornhill, among other moves that were constantly asked week after week, locally and nationally, that finally Spag said, well, he said something like, we look at the tape every week. No way. There's no way. If they were looking at the tape week after week, and that means that he was being a stubborn jackass. Because the tape constantly showed that Sorensen should not have been getting starter snaps, should not have been used single high, should not have been used in man coverage. Like, you're either a liar or you're an incompetent coach. And I don't think he's an incompetent coach. Like, so let's just say that. There was no reason for that stubbornness that was going on 6-7 weeks into the season. It took all of this pressure. It probably took pressure from Andy and probably even farther up. It probably took pressure from Clark Hunt. Because even if the coaches don't listen to what other people say, like, Clark Hunt has eyes, Clark Hunt has ears, and there was somebody in the RGR chat who has season tickets that was saying early on in the season, like week 4 or 5 or 6 or something, like, public relations were calling season ticket holders, asking them how the start was affecting their desire to purchase season tickets for next year. So don't give me that crap. Somebody was paying attention to this. Like, they knew what was going on. So I don't care even if it wasn't Spags succumbing to that pressure from the media. He was getting pressure from somebody, whether it was Andy or Clark, because everybody could see it, and they were stubbornly going along with it. Okay, so I'm not going to put a cape on Spags for Spags putting out Spags' own fires. Now, I'll be fair to him in some sense, because, like, it takes some time to do things. It takes time for defense to gel. They've progressively gotten better. The mantra is 1% better every day. And I think we've definitely seen enough results, even outside of Thornhill getting more snaps that he should have gotten, even with Hitchens getting injured, so Spags was forced to give Bolton snaps that he should have been getting earlier on, right? This was kind of like the L'Jarius Sneed situation last year, where he got snaps at the beginning of the season because of Breeland's suspension. And what we all saw from that is it shouldn't have taken Breeland's suspension for Sneed to get those snaps. He was ready for those snaps from week 1. Whether that's a coaching philosophical thing that I'm not going to start a rookie, or a personal coaching inferiority of I don't feel comfortable starting a rookie, whatever the case is, right? We've seen this now 2 years in a row, where either it took a player getting suspended or a player getting injured for us to see a rookie and say, hey, this guy should have been starting and he should be getting more snaps. And so, like, it's hard for me because I don't want to trash Spags, but it's been clear that he's put out his own fires, basically. At the same time, he was stubborn, whatever the case, whether it was from pressure from Andy or Clark or whoever, he had to abandon his stubbornness and start playing the right players. And he's finding out how to, even though he's still playing Sorensen and Neiman more than I would like him to see, he's figured out ways to utilize them better than he was the beginning of the season. And as for Andy and Eric, like, we're still not 100% sure who's calling the plays, what's going on there. The offense, I would say this is the first time in weeks, because we kind of have to put an asterisk with the Raiders games. This is like the first time where I felt mostly comfortable with our offense. And I think that even people who are doubting our defense, if we come out with a great performance against the Bengals, I would think that after this week, after this game, if we come out with a good defensive showing that people are going to have to acknowledge this defense is real. Um, and hopefully that happens. But on the offensive side, like we still, like there are still issues. There are still things that, we're kind of going back to last year where there are still issues, but now the offense is looking good enough that, I'm afraid we're going to start ignoring those issues again, and this will just bubble up again. Like I don't know if you have any. Is this just a me thing, where it seems like everyone is getting rosy on the coaching staff, and people are going back to those of us who might have been critical. I can totally understand like the toxic fans. Like there were people that were saying trade Mahomes. Start Henny. A bunch of different crazy things. I'm not talking about that, but those of us who are critical, there were people who were like wanting to, I guess, cancel us, for having ever been critical of this team that was really poorly coached or looked really poorly coached at the beginning of the season. And oh yeah, let's not forget, this didn't start the season. It started at least the Super Bowl, if not before. And so, you know, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Gooch? Am I just like way off base here, or?
No, no, no. Look, first of all, the Spagnolo thing, I kind of agree with the Fires thing because you don't start Sorensen over Thornhill, even with Thornhill coming back from the injury, unless one, you're trying to prove a point, or two, you really think in the heart of hearts that Sorensen is an upgrade over Thornhill, which anybody who's watched Thornhill play knows that is not the case, which also leads me to Sam Madison, who is the defensive backs coach. What is he not seeing? Or what is he telling Spags that Thornhill rode the bench 6 weeks longer than he should have? Um, in my opinion, uh, Matt House obviously has done a tremendous job with young linebackers, which is why he's now the defensive coordinator of LSU. Even though he's going to finish out the season, and they always say, "Oh my, I'm committed to this team," but you've got to be thinking in the back of your mind how you fix that, the LSU defense, while you're trying to do this. And let's face it, he doesn't get that opportunity if he doesn't have the success with Willie Gay and Bolton that he's had. Now, obviously, that's not all him. There is talent. The NFL is a hard league to get into. So that's talent there, but he's learned how to harness it to make them some of the best linebackers we've had in a while. Um, no offense to uh, some, Ryan's favorite run stopper. What was his name? I can't think of his name now. All he did was stop the run. But
Are you talking
and
about Raglan?
yes,
Reggie?
Reggie
Reggie?
Ragland, Reggie. Um, and House is doing wonders with the defensive line now that Spags has decided that Jones is not an edge rusher. He needs to go back to his rightful place, which is being 1A defensive tackle in the NFL. Um, so I'm a little critical too because we're talking what 3-4 the first 7 weeks, 30 points a game given up by our defense the first 7 weeks, and then after that, then you see the actual. Uh, they say, oh, Spags' defense is always slow to act in the beginning and it consistently gets better. Here's the problem. Spags has been there 3 years. Most of those players have been there 3 years. There should be no reason that his defense started out this slow. No reason. Because what do we say? I believe you said it best. You were like, really, we lost Breland? I mean, really, that's it, right?
Right.
Breland and a few parts that didn't really matter.
Yeah.
So
What? Damian Wilson, the linebacker.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, like this The sum should have been better than the parts for only losing those two players, and 9 of the 11 starters are back. Or not 9 of the 11 because obviously Gay was hurt and then Bolton's a rookie. But, you've got the majority of your defensive starters are back. So there really should have been no reason that we were giving up 30 points a game. Um, some people will tell you Ward's injury had a lot to do with it. I think the problem is that he tried to get too creative instead of sticking to what he knows. Instead of letting Snead stay on the outside and only doing slot occasionally so that Matthew could fill that role, which Matthew loves being in the slot because he says he feels younger, and just using him as utility, then all of a sudden you've got Snead playing half the snaps outside, half the snaps in slot. That's a different technique for how you're going to play a receiver, which I think, even as great as he is a lot to throw on a 22-year-old's plate in the National Football League. That's my opinion. I also think what we saw with the offense is I think Andy is so dead set on getting EB a job that EB was calling plays and there was no, it wasn't fluid. Because you could tell after the first 15, which is Andy's specialty, that we just kind of got herky jerky. Um, and there just was no rhythm to the offense, which I think accounted for a lot of Pat's pressing. And those, I mean, this season's been you see more the first 7 games. You saw more photos of or video of Pat looking at the sideline like, "What are we doing?" than you've ever seen in the first 3 years. Usually, it's out there. We go, we go, we go. Um, I think for a lot of people, for a lot of fans, winning cures everything. For a lot of people who love this team, grew up with this team, live or die, ride or die with this team, we see the underlying issues. And so I don't think it's wrong to be critical because um, you would have to think they're being critical of themselves. If not, then they're looking at this team with rose-colored glasses. And I love the 8-win winning streak. The problem is that if we don't continue to adjust and get better, the 8-win winning streak's not going to mean anything. And for the wins, look, I love the Chiefs team. I need them to lose because what I think a lot of people don't realize is that in order to win the Super Bowl, as of now, the Chiefs have to go on a 13-game winning streak. Because if they win the last two, you can't lose after that. I mean, you just can't. And 13 winning streaks are a little hard to come by in the NFL, which is the reason why only one team in NFL history has run the table, and the Patriots are the second team to go. Well, they went 18-0 and lost the Super Bowl. I mean, Peyton Manning, who is probably the smartest quarterback that's ever played the game, went 13-0 and then lost. There's not many. I mean, there's 14-2 and all that, but there aren't 13 straight wins. So you need to continue tinkering because eventually you're going to get the narrative again. The Chiefs were found out.
Right.
It's right to be critical of the coaching staff. They should be critical of themselves. If not, we're going to be disappointed. And that's my take on it.
Right. Yeah. If you're the opposite of being critical is being complacent, and if you're ever complacent, you're asking to lose in the NFL because I mean, other coaches aren't complacent; they're hungry. Other players aren't complacent; they're hungry. And if you're not hungry to be better or to be the best, then you're going to be left in the dust.
And
Um,
Patrick said it best in a press conference this week. He said every week could be somebody else's week in the NFL. So
right.
I mean, and this is I don't Andy is I don't want to put a lot of blame on Andy because it's hard to win 200 games in the NFL as a head coach. It's even harder to win it in two different conferences
or to have the longevity with one team that you can afford to win 100 games or 200 games in the NFL. But I think in some instances, I would really like to see him get more involved because I think the Juan thing at the beginning, I think it finally took pressure from Clark, like you said, but I also think Andy finally stuck his head in and was like, look, if you're not seeing the issue with starting Sorensen over this kid, then that's a whole different conversation we need to have. You know what I'm saying? But it shouldn't take that long. But Andy wants his guys to learn to coach. That's why his coaching tree is so big. This is why everybody loves to play for him. He's the opposite of Belichick. Belichick has that knowledge, but he doesn't really share it with anybody. Andy has all that knowledge, shares it with everybody, and then wants you to use it to succeed. But then I think the problem is he's a little too hands off. Now, I love Big Red. He can coach this team until he wants to retire. I mean, he's done something that, what, 7 other coaches in our franchise history could not do, which was put a Super Bowl winning team together. I mean, we've had playoff coaches, rest in peace, Marty Schottenheimer. Kansas City was a consistent playoff contender, but even us diehards knew that meant into the playoffs, out of the playoffs after one game. Um, that's just my take on it, though. So,
Yeah,
who
I
am I?
don't know why I thought you were gonna just say just win, baby, but
I'll give props to John Madden, but there's no love for Al Davis.
oh, yeah. I, I don't know. I've gotten frustrated over so much this season, and I think some of it is I haven't gotten over the frustration of the Super Bowl game plan. I mean, to be frankly uh, honest there, and I know some fans like to manipulate the timeline in their brain and blame it on Britt Reed's thing, which again happened 3 days before the Super Bowl and had nothing to do with the game plan or the installation of the game plan. And so I don't know. It's you brought up some things, and I mean, I don't know that I can disagree with them at all. It's been kind of frustrating to see this progression, and whether it is Eric or Andy trying to get Eric a job or not. And I've said this time and again, if that was the case, then the results, I think, they're going to find have been the exact opposite than what they wanted, because at least through the first 8 or 9 weeks, I think that any owner who was watching this team was turned off by what they saw. Anyone who saw this team, saw the Super Bowl game plan, or saw what we were doing early on this season, I think they would have had a sour taste in their mouth. And if Bieniemy was given credit for that, I think that would have done nothing but hurt him.
Well, look,
You know,
prime example, brother. Jacksonville put out a list of all the coaches that they wanted to interview. EB's name was not on it.
right? It's like half the
Now,
league.
right, in my opinion, you're working with if you were the offensive coordinator and you're working with the best player in the NFL, the best quarterback in the NFL anyway, because defensive you got to go Aaron Donald, but at least the best offensive player in the NFL, the new face of the league, and he's young, and look what he's accomplished. You have to think like if my guy who's supposedly the next Peyton Manning, why not have that guy come coach him? He wasn't even on the list. You know what I'm saying? Like I like Byron Leftwich and everything like that, and I like some of the old coaches. Who was that? The old former Jim Caldwell. Jim
Yeah, Jim
Caldwell.
Caldwell.
Um, I like him because he did one thing nobody else has done. He won in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? And I just like, you don't see EB's name there. I think he's a better coach, more passionate than Byron Leftwich. I think he knows about the running game. Um, it just is mind boggling to me And I'm with you that I think that this hurt him because people know what an Andy Reid offense is supposed to look like. And it didn't look like that. I mean, yeah, we put up 30 points a game, but we were losing and there were stalls in the offense where it looked like we just couldn't get out of our own way or the play calling was disjointed or whatever. And I think Andy started taking it over as it got closer, like now, the nitty gritty, because he's used to that pressure and the offense has looked 30 times better as far as moving the ball. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I mean you're fine. You know, I think that there was a lot that the offensive coaching staff, and I'm not going to throw it on just one person because there are multiple pieces in that room, and I think that each one of them deserves some blame, whether it is for not speaking up, for not being a contrarian voice at times. Um, we saw some of the issues with this team happening last year. Again, I'll go back to the Super Bowl, and then, the offensive struggles this year. Like those things just don't pop up. What were our players doing this offseason? That our receivers weren't able to catch passes from the beginning of the season, that players were fumbling, in games from the beginning of the season. You talked about Spags' defense building off of, last year and previous years, given that, the turnover was what? We got rid of Breland, we added Mike Hughes, we got rid of Damian Wilson, we drafted Nick Bolton, we added Drawn Reed, um, and we let K-Pass go. Those are the basic moves on the defense, but on the offense, for the most part, we have the same thing. We let Sammy Watkins go. We drafted Noah Gray. We brought uh, Blake Bell back. We still have D-Rob. We still have Pringle. We still have Hardman. We still have Hill. We brought in a new offensive line, which created its own issues, yeah. Uh, but, we still saw things that most of these other players shouldn't have been having an issues with, whether it was with drops, whether it was with fumbles, um, all these kind of things in there. And like Andy Reid has been around the league for so long that it's just not conscionable to say that he didn't know how to defeat a too high look, right? Mahomes has been in the league for 5 years now, 4 as a starter. It's not conscionable to say that Mahomes doesn't know how to defeat a too high safety look. And so, like, I know that was the popular thing of that's how you beat the Chiefs, but it was clearly something else with that because it wasn't that. These guys know how to do that. There were a whole host of other issues, and part of those issues were one, they didn't have the foresight to see what defenses were going to do this year, even though they saw the adjustment in Week 12 with the Bucks and they saw how the Super Bowl went, and even early on in the season, they weren't with the trends of what other teams were going to do. Some people could argue that was by design, like, and there could be merit in that, that it could be a plausible theory that they were just trying to push on through because they didn't want to reveal what they were going to do so early in the season so that defenses couldn't have an opportunity to adjust to it. But at the same time, if that's your theory, I would argue that we started too early, right? Because we've had a few good weeks to where teams can start to see what we're going to do already now and adjust for the playoffs. I mean, your counter argument to that would be, well, we had to do something, or we weren't going to win the division or possibly even make the playoffs. So I mean, I can see the arguments and counter arguments and counter arguments to the counter arguments and whatever, but I don't know. Like, there's just a lot of things that are disappointing because you don't expect such a drop off offensively and defensively coming off of a Super Bowl, and then the way the first 6, 7, 8 weeks started, because it wasn't just defense, it wasn't just Sorensen playing over Thornhill, it was offensive issues as well. And so I think it's fair for us to even get critical about each individual position coach on this roster, because as you said, Andy likes to bring guys up and let them progress through, and learn, and then send them on. So we don't end up with the best of the best at basically any position on our coaching staff. Because of that, Andy's grooming guys to be future offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators or head coaches. And so we talked about the defense, and I know we talked about this before. I mentioned Coach Vass when he was looking at the Chiefs defense against the Steelers, and he talked about how the defensive line was all gummed up. Like they were not doing what a defensive line should do. And we're talking about a week 16 game, right? With mostly the same defensive line. Staley's been here. Is this his third year now? Second or third year?
Daly?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his third year, I think.
He and House came at the same time, right? And I know that there was some excitement from Chiefs fans that eventually one of the two would become the defensive coordinator. And so, I remember when I was listening, when I heard Vass say that, I'm like, wait a minute, this is Bill Belichick's defensive line coach. Like I was excited about him coming over because we expected our defensive line to be as sound and as productive as New England's defensive line, and we just haven't seen it yet. So I think we can be critical of coaches on the staff and the lack of results. It's like, and it can be a mixture of players and coaches. But if, to the extent it's players, it's still part coaches and it's part Brett Veach because in his scouting staff, because coaches, to be a great coach, you have to be a great teacher. I mean, that's just part of it. There's the X's and O's part of it, but you also have to be a great teacher, especially if you're a position coach. And so you have to understand what makes each individual guy, if you're a position coach at that position, tick. You got to understand how to motivate him and how to help him learn what he's supposed to do. That's partially on you. And to the extent that it's on the player, if the player doesn't have that, if they don't have that drive, if they're a Breland Speaks or whatever, to that extent, that's on the scouting staff, and that's on the GM, and that's on whatever coaches sign off on the drafting of that player. And so, I think we've taken it too easy on the coaching staff. But, I still want to give them, at the same time, I want to be fair to them and try to be balanced. Like, we've seen the fruit of, focusing on getting a little bit better every day. And I think as long as we continue to see that, we're going to see that this defense, still hasn't peaked yet. The offense still has a ways to go to peak. And that's not being critical. I mean, that's an optimistic thing. The offense, if it's up to its potential, can be way, way, way better and way more dangerous. And, that's not a negative. It's a positive. It's something that should give us hope. This defense, as I said last week, Gooch, I believe you said that you thought we were going to kind of regress a little bit. We had the bad, this is the great, we're somewhere in the middle. And, I said I disagreed. I think that, we'll even be better than what we are. And I still believe that. Because I think that there are things the coaching staff can do that's going to make us even better. Some of these guys getting playing time that haven't been getting playing time, if they start to sneak in more and more, push their way through the door, I think that'll make us better. And I think the focus on continuing to just get, a little bit better each day will have us to a place where we're a great defense.
I'm with you, brother. I get it.
All right. Well, I've been kind of critical here. So let's go in kind of a more optimistic and happy direction, and let's do some shout outs for not just this last game. If you want to do the whole season, you can do the whole season, but especially this last game. Let's just do some shout outs for players, what we've seen. Or you can do coaches too.
Shout out to Pringle, 6 catches, 75 yards, led all receivers, 2 tubs. Shout out to Pringle for stepping up. Way to be, player. I've been a fan since K-State. Never been a K-State guy, but I always used to tune in just to watch you. So it's great to see you with the hometown team and actually being able to get some opportunity. So way to make the most of it.
Right. Any more shout outs? I mean, we got to give a shout out to CEH.
I could shout out everybody, bro. Shout out to the offensive line for looking dominant and finally. We knew it was coming, but you guys, look, I don't think if I have, I don't remember. I have never seen an offensive line keep off a pass rush for 9 seconds. That's incredible in a game. Patrick is staying clean. I think he's trying to start to trust the line. Shout out to Kelsey for 6 years of 1,000 yards, which has never been done. Obviously, Tyreek is special. Shout out to Tyron for putting out all the toxic people and getting back to being the landlord.
And staying off Twitter.
Shout out to Bolton, who's playing way above what I thought he would, because I surely didn't like the pick initially. So shout out to that. Shout out to Thornhill for winning his job back. I'm only going to say this one time. And it'll be the only time probably in his whole career that I will say it. So you ought to mark this down and circle it on your calendar, screenshot it in case it happens again. But shout out to Ward for getting LASIK. Because if that is what kept you from being a B corner, number 2 corner, you should have done that a long time ago, brother, because I am glad to see you get your head around and look for the ball and not try to play the man because you can't see. You've become a solid number 2. You're going to get paid like a number 1, so we probably won't see you next year.
Thanks for the comp pick.
Shout out to you. Yeah, shout out to you, my friend. And that's all I got. So it's your turn, Keith.
Right. Yeah. And that interception, Ward was reading that from the beginning and he had a good break on it. But man, that interception and to hold on to that, right? I think I might have joked last week that we should put him on offense when our receivers weren't catching anything. Was that Ward that I said that about? And man, he's kind of shown it two weeks in a row now that, hey, maybe we do need to put him on offense, especially when we're in the red zone. Let's just throw those interceptions up to him. And so, no. But, I think I said, there's a difference between catching a Roethlisberger changeup than there is to catching a Mahomes fastball. So, but no, I mean, total props for that catch because that was an amazing catch and ended up being one-handed at the end there. So kudos to Ward for that. Hughes had some good coverage as well. The results weren't necessarily there, but I mean he was in position at least a few times that that we saw going back and watching a little bit of the game. There were times we saw both Jones and Reed getting double teamed at the same time, and they were still getting pressure in there. I think there was one where there was a synchronized swim move by both of them at the same time there. I mean, again, back with CEH on the touchdown run, breaking out of that tackle. I don't want to be a little critical on it. He did follow Burton, and they both ran right into a wall of Steelers. But I mean, he broke free. He got the touchdown. It was fun to see him get excited after that. Gore again with the Gore drive. He had the great catch, 51 yards there on the scramble drill, and not only that, but Gore had a play towards the end of the game. And I'm going to say this because I know people talk about garbage time, but when you're a running back and you're in the fourth quarter and you're up by 30-some points and the defense knows that you're running, it's not the same thing. There's no such thing in my mind as garbage time for a running back running out the clock in the fourth quarter. It's not the same thing as being down by 30 and being a quarterback or a receiver and the defense is playing prevent, right? The defense knows you're running the ball. They know you're running the ball. That is a lot harder to get a gain when the defense knows you're running the ball than at the beginning of the game when you're running a fairly balanced pass-run ratio. And they don't know for sure. And Seth had an article out this week, Chief in the North. Make sure you subscribe to his newsletter. Looking at
subscribe to the newsletter.
CEH, Darrell, and Gore in this game. Some of it I disagree with, and that's fine. But someone in the comments was talking about how, CEH had it harder because of all the first down runs he was getting in obvious situations. He had, I believe, 2 first down runs in the game. 2 first down runs. So I don't know what this person was talking about. He had 2 first down runs. He had 5 or 6 second down runs, and they all varied, from 2nd and 1 to 2nd and 5 to 2nd and 10, right? They weren't predictable down in distances for him. And then he had a few third down runs in there as well. But he was getting most of his runs when, it was a 0-0 game, a 7-0 game, a 14-0 game, and the defense wasn't exactly cued on the run because we were still passing. We were passing, into the third quarter. And so,
right.
But Gore, he had the second quarter drive, the Gore drive as I'm calling it now, where he had the 5 straight plays, 2 runs, 3 passes, including the 50-yarder. And then he just, he got exhausted and they put Darrell in. But other than that, he didn't really see time until the fourth quarter. And you can call it garbage time all you want. But again, the defense knows you're running. The defense is angry because you're up 30 points. And as a running back, there's no such thing as garbage time. Not to mention, Gore had some backups in the game. And there's one clip, and there's one clip, I think it's the last drive the Chiefs have. And as soon as Gore gets the ball, there's a defender right in his face, 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Gore gets the ball, and the defender's already right in front of him, getting ready to tackle him. Not only does he make the defender miss, who, by the way, should have been blocked but wasn't, because the blocker assigned to block him was someone that we elevated, a tight end that we elevated up from the practice squad, a guy I've never even heard of before, Nakia something or other. No idea who he is. He doesn't block his guy. He goes on to the second level, doesn't block anyone there either, and he lets his guy right through. So as soon as Gore gets the ball, 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he's met with the defender. Not only does he make the guy miss, but then Burton misses on his block or can't sustain his block. By the time Gore's back to the line of scrimmage, he makes him miss, and he gets 5 more yards. So he turns a 5-yard loss into a 5-yard gain for, in my mind, a net gain of 10 yards there, because it was going to be a 5-yard loss. So shout out to Gore for his game and for that play in particular, because we don't really see that much out of our running backs of turning a 5-yard loss into a 5-yard gain.
Facts.
So, what's that?
I said facts.
So shout out to him. Shout out to Pat because he distributed the ball to everyone, even if he was forced to, which I don't want to slip back into my coaching staff thing, but some of these improvements that we've seen on offense have been forced upon us, right? COVID forced some of these things upon Patrick and Bieniemy and Andy because of the preparation for this week without Travis and not knowing, being without Hill for part of the week and not knowing if we were going to get any of these guys back. Like, we were forced into some of these things that made us successful this week, which is why I think seeing it sustained when we get Travis back and when we've had a whole week where we have Travis and Tyreek practicing is going to be more telling to me than this game, because do we revert back to those habits? Does Patrick revert back to Travis and Tyreek being his safety blankets on every play? Or are we going to continue to spread the ball around like we were kind of forced to do because of COVID? Are we going to see the same thing with the play calling? Was it just that the Steelers' defense was so bad against the run that, we were more committed to the run this game? Or are we going to see that more sustained, throughout the rest of the season, and will that carry into the postseason? So, like, to me, I think these are fair questions to ask. But anyway, regardless, Patrick had to do it. He was able to do it, so shout out to him. You know what? Shout out to Elliott Fry and Johnny Townsend. Because these guys came in, they knew they were only here for a week, right? They came in, they knew they were only here for a week. I can't imagine, what that situation's like. But they came in, especially Elliott Fry. You got the wind swirling at Arrowhead. You got the pressure of you're kicking for a playoff team. You're replacing the second best kicker in the NFL for this game. Like, you have all this pressure. And the guy came in, he had his misses, but he also performed. He had great kickoffs. He made some field goals. He did his job. Hopefully, he had a good enough audition for whatever other team's going to need a kicker here. There are a few teams out there that could have used a kicker. And the same with Townsend. He did his job. I don't think there were any messed up holds. And so, kudos to those guys. I'm going to stop here because we could probably give a kudos to basically most everybody on the team for this week, which is what happens when you just destroy another team like that. Any last kudos? Any shout outs? Any more shout outs before we move on?
No, you know what? I want to give a final shout out. I'm with you to Elliott Fry. Is that his name, Fry?
Right. Yeah.
Because kicking an Arrowhead is hard with that design and the way the wind was going. And so many props to you for stepping up and doing, I know it's what you're supposed to do, but it's still hard nonetheless. That's why there's only 32 people in the world that can do it. So big shout out. And that's the end of my shout outs right there. I just wanted to second the Elliott Fry one.
All right. Hey, no problem. All right. We're going to continue to have more fun here. I promise I'm not going to bring up the coaching staff. I'm not going to criticize again. We're actually going to have fun on this one, hopefully. So this one's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We've done the steal and cut for all the divisions before. And so I just thought this would be a little fun. If we didn't have blank, I'd take blank. So, yeah, and a lot of these picks might be similar to when we went team by team and we picked for each division. But if I didn't have, blank, I'd take blank. So, for instance, we could start out with, if I didn't have Tyreek Hill, I'd take, and then fill in the blank there.
Man, if I didn't have, are we using just current players?
Right, yeah, just current players. We could do this again another time and do, like, historic, I guess.
Dang, that would be fun. If I didn't have Tyreek Hill, I'd take. Ooh, that's tough. I'd take Justin Jefferson.
Okay, yeah, That's a great one. I don't know if I'll be able to top that. I guess if we didn't have Tyreek Hill, I guess since he's got about 2,000 yards here and he's able to catch passes somehow and make Stafford look all world, I'd take Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp, that is a good one. That's a damn good one. Darn good one. Um, if I didn't have Frank Clark, I'd take Michael Parsons.
Somehow this feels like cheating. If I didn't have this player I don't even want to have. If I didn't have Frank Clark, I'd take Myles Garrett.
Oh, dang. That's a good one. If I didn't have, man, that's a good one.
All right, how about this?
If I didn't have Ward, I'd take Diggs from the Cowboys.
Okay, if I didn't have Ward. If I didn't have Ward, I'd take Darius Slay.
Oh, I always forget about him.
All right, I'm gonna give you the easy pick here. If I didn't have Chris Jones, and I know the obvious pick here, so I'm gonna go away from it. If I didn't have Chris Jones, I would take Jeffrey Simmons. Slam dunk. Drive it home, Gooch.
Well, obviously, the obvious, if I didn't have Chris Jones, is Aaron Donald.
Right.
But, so I'm going to leave that because there's nobody better than Simmons and Donald. I mean, Jones is better than Simmons, of course.
Right.
But I'm going to go one better, and I'm going to make it tough on you. If I didn't have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, everybody knows what the obvious one is to that. I'd take back playoff Damian.
Yeah, and not to get sidetracked here, but I made the argument the other night with Seth, not against Seth, not that Seth was arguing with me, but I made the argument the other night that Damian's what this running back room is missing right now. Clyde has a place here. Even with all the issues, he's still getting 4 to 4.5 yards per carry, on average. Clyde is kind of more the finesse runner in my mind. Darrell is the power guy. And Gore, he has more juice in my opinion. But really having Damian on this roster right now, if we still had him on our roster, I think that we would have a very strong running back room for what this team needs, because without the explosive pass plays, we have to have explosive run plays. Patrick has been about the only person who's done that the last 2 years for us, had explosive run plays. And this season, he has more explosive run plays. He has something like more 10-yard runs than Clyde does, even though Patrick has had like 80 carries less or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember the stat, but so yeah, that's a good pick. I'm not sure what you meant by obvious though. Were you talking about Jonathan Taylor or were you talking about Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb?
I was actually talking about Jonathan Taylor because he's younger. Henry's got a lot of miles on him.
Right.
I know that obviously he who shall not be named is breaking the mold for QBs right now as far as age, but I still think the running back position, once you get so many miles on it, you start to fall off. And
You can only be which is why a lot of successful teams use a running back by committee, because once you take all that abuse on a feature back, you start to wear down, run down. I mean, it's almost like Father Time doubles the speed when you're a running back.
Right.
So it'd probably be Jonathan Taylor, even though I would actually I'm not going to go there.
Go ahead.
No, because I made a promise to the big chief, not Sean, but the head of RGR, that I would save some of this stuff for after dark.
Okay.
But there's a certain backup in Cleveland that I would like to see in this offense.
Dearness Johnson?
Dearness Johnson? No.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and answer mine here. If we didn't have CEH, I'd take who I think is probably the next best running back out there of the guys we mentioned, and I would take Lamar Jackson.
Nice. Nice.
All right. I'm just playing. I mean, he's a good passer for a running back, though.
He is a good passer for a running back.
I spent so much time on that joke that I didn't even think of. You know what? I guess what's his name? Williams, right? The running back for the Broncos. I don't know. He might work in this offense, right? Is it Jace? It's not Jason Williams. I can't think of his name.
I can't either, but I know who you're talking about.
But yeah.
Well, let's see. If I didn't have Pringle, Hardman, or DeMarcus, I'd take OBJ, because he's proven that it wasn't him in Cleveland that was the problem.
I thought you were going to name three receivers there.
Even if he is a diva, now OBJ can produce like the three of them. So,
okay.
Or you know what? I'll go two. I'll take Adam Thielen. I think he's good.
All right, I'd take Deebo Samuel. I think that absent of having a dynamic running back in this offense right now, that his yards after catch ability is kind of where the offense is kind of going, where like that way, you know, the short passing game, in a way that Deebo on this team with Tyreek and Travis, like you could replace those other guys with Deebo, and they even line them up at running back once in a while, don't they? The 49ers.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
they do.
Yeah, I think I'll go Deebo there.
All right. I think I got one more, because I like the offensive line as a whole. Of course, if I didn't have Niang, I'd want Schwartz back, but we're talking active players. If I didn't have one, I'd want Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. See, I think I would take him if I didn't have Tyron. If I didn't have one, I guess maybe these could be interchangeably as well. Oh man. I think I'd take Derwin James.
Ooh, another good one. Probably the only man that can hold down Kelsey.
And even he could. Well, yeah, literally, if he's holding on to him. Did you see the clip from? There's a clip going around from the game, you know, because of people trying to excuse the comeback to James being out. There was a clip of one of the plays where he was in the game, and he was covering Travis, and he was like 7 yards trailing behind Travis. He couldn't even keep up with him on that play. So anyway, speaking of, let's just do that. If we didn't have Travis, oh man, this is a hard one. You know what? I got to be faithful to my Iowa boy, so I'll go with George Kittle here.
Now, see, that was going to be my pick, but since you picked him, I'll have to go elsewhere. If I didn't have Kelsey, Oh, I can't think of his name. The tight end for Atlanta.
Oh, Pitts.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because from what I've seen, he basically plays Travis's actual position on the field,
Right.
all over the place. Yeah. Um. All right. I don't know. We can do one more each here if we want. Um. I don't know. I don't know that I really have any more.
I
Let's
don't.
save some. Let's save some for next time. And
Absolutely.
you guys can leave some in the comments too, and you can do your own. You can tell us where we're wrong, or you can suggest some for us to do the next time that we do this little game here. All right. Well, you ready to tackle the big one? We'll beat the Bengals if. And you can't say COVID now because the NFL has like completely changed everything to benefit certain teams after we already played. And so basically, if you got COVID, you can play your next game.
Well, let's see. The obvious, we'll win the game if we can win the turnover battle. I think I'm not as concerned about the offense now because as long as they continue down this path, they'll be good. I really believe the key to winning is putting pressure on Joe Burrow. Because I think they are, if memory serves me right, Burrow's over 4,000 yards. They've got a 1,000-yard runner and 2,000-yard receivers. And T. Higgins might be better at the jump ball than most of our corners. And Jamar, for all his troubles catching the ball, runs really good routes. So I think it all comes down to pressure. Playing within ourselves, but getting Burrow off of his spot to kind of disrupt some of those plays. The Bengals are a feel-good story at, is it 9-7?
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, somewhere around there.
They're a feel-good story. I just don't think that they don't come into Arrowhead and win. Burrow hasn't been in Arrowhead yet when it's at its peak, and right now we're trying to lock down home field throughout, and I think that's going to aid us. So as long as we're creating the pressure and the crowd brings the noise, I think this one's in the bag. And I think we can rest our starters against the Broncos.
Yeah, I think that I don't want to get in the habit of saying this anytime a team has a kind of a receiver that runs great routes or who is quick, but I think it benefits our defense that they get to practice against Tyreek and Travis, who they're both good route runners, and I think it also benefits our defense that we've already faced Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and some of these other teams and receivers that are great with the jump ball as well to help prepare us for this game. But yeah. You're right though, because I mean, like we said with Big Ben on that one play to Deontay Johnson, and as we've seen with other quarterbacks and receivers so far this season, that if they throw the jump ball right, like our defensive backs, we can't do anything about it. And so in those situations, you got to just tip your hat to the offense. And so, I'm going to agree with you on the turnover battle thing there. Jeff Porter put some interesting stuff in the Discord about this game, and I don't remember it all. I can't find it, but the Bengals have also kind of been a byproduct of of an easier schedule in their wins, and so um, I think if our offense takes care of business, well, I mean, if our offense is back, you know, I don't think it really matters like what the Bengals do. Despite what ESPN or any other national outlet out there throwing out hot takes, Burrow with their tails of the tape, Burrow is not better than Mahomes. Um, who's since he's coached Zach, I can't think of his last name, but he's not better than Andy. No one individual receiver I wouldn't say on the Bengals is better than Tyreek. They don't have a tight end on their team that's better than Travis. Now, their group of receivers as a whole is better um, across the board, as a whole than our receivers are. We have the better offensive line. They have the better running back. And so, and I would say we have the better defense. And so I think overall we're the better team and we should win. I think people are probably enamored with what the Bengals did last week, where they were like me on Madden, running up the score because they could on a very battered Ravens defense. By the way, this Ravens team, if they get healthy next year, they're going to be scary because they still won way more games than even I expected them to with all the injuries they've had this year. If those guys can get healthy next year and they can, get back to where they were or even get better, like that's going to be a scary team. But
No
right
doubt.
now the Bengals were beating a team that was basically practice squad players between COVID and 15 weeks of injuries. So, I'm not exactly impressed by that win. You still have to make the throw, you still have to make the catch, you still have to execute. Um, but yeah, and maybe I should be. It's kind of scary when I'm not nervous because usually the games that I'm really nervous are the ones we definitely end up winning. And when I'm not nervous at all, those are the games that we end up losing. But, I think you hit the main points. If we win the turnover battle, if the offense continues to build on this last game, and it's still a big question mark for me. I got to see it because like I said, this last game they were kind of forced into that by COVID. Even though we got Tyreek back, he couldn't practice throughout the week. Chris Jones just said today or yesterday, I think I saw Chris Jones said, he's still trying to get back into game shape from having COVID. And we're talking about, mild case. And so, there's still lingering effects for these guys. And so, um, you know, I, I got to see that we can build off of it. And it wasn't just part of this last week's game plan because of the situation or the circumstances. Because what we saw shouldn't just be a matter of the circumstances. The offense that we saw is the offense that, I think in some ways the two of us have been begging for a while now. And many of us as fans have been clamoring for. And I think even Ryan, has said this is the offense we need to see. It came out of necessity. So the question is it going to continue or are the coaches going to be stubborn? Are they and Pat going to revert back? What are we going to see? And so to me, that's kind of a big question. We'll beat the Bengals if we continue to see the offense that we should see. We win the turnover battle, and our defense continues to play the way they've been playing. I think it's as simple as those three things. Um, this might be an easier game for the defense being on the road. For whatever reason, we seem to have play better there the last few years anyway on the road. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think you always got to be careful in these games, though, because the Bengals are fighting to actually make the playoffs. The Chiefs are fighting to keep the number one seed. But that division is like, what, there's like one game? I think there's like one game between first and last place in that division. So, I mean, you never know when you have circumstances like that. But anyway, last word, Gooch.
Go Chiefs. We'll be watching.
Well, I think that's it for this episode. We thank you guys for joining us here. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to RGR, to like today's episode, and to click the bell so you get the notifications when RGR has content go live. And Gooch, go ahead.
We appreciate all y'all who watch this content, whether religiously or in passing, everybody who tuned in today to check us out and talk to us in the comments, which Keys is always in there during the premiere, and I kind of bounce in, so you can talk to us there. Make sure to like, subscribe, like he said, hit the bell, because we're live with something every single day. Me and Keys are on Twitter, usually bantering back and forth between us or about something. Come in there and join us. Big Chief Sean, he's got tailgame videos. Make sure you subscribe to him. He's got 500 subscribers now. We're trying to get him to 1,000. Let's go ahead and big up that guy. Go to the RGR merchandise store, check some stuff out there, get you a trooper, get you a hoodie. The live streams are always on Monday. Chief in the North with Seth Kaiser. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. That's alive on Thursday. We have film breakdown, film review. Of course, me and Keys on Friday. Become a member if you're not. You'll also find me, Keys, Big Chief Sean, Ryan, Dan, the mod father himself, Aaron Morrow, in the Discord, Jeff Porter, Frankie. We're all in there. We're all talking at some point. Again, a special shout out to the Madden family. Our condolences, especially around the holidays time. That is a tough time to lose anyone, especially a grandfather, a father. You know, that's pretty deep. So, and with that, and with COVID still running rampant, obviously through teams and the fact that we can still talk about a sport that we love, we always want to make sure that you tell somebody you love them, because you never know when you won't be able to. So you want to give them their flowers now. Tell them you love them. We're serious about that. We'll catch you in the next one. Today's Friday. Most of us will see you on Monday in the live stream. Be safe. Take care.
And before we end there, I think we should kind of point this out. Gooch, we had the RGR Fantasy Football League for the first time this year. How did the Huddle brothers do this championship weekend?
Well, the Huddle brothers, we took first and third. Keys won the championship. I got third. I think Cole was second, but we had a lot of fun doing it. But we told you in the beginning that this wasn't a race. One of the Huddle Bros was going to win this. That's not bragging, guys. We're being humble. It was fun. We're going to try and do it next year. So if you're a member, hit up Aaron in the Discord. We're going to do it again. We're going to have a lot of fun. I think we're actually going to try and do a playoff one. So if you want to get into that, please do that. I think we were even discussing some other things like a Madden tournament, kind of in honor of John Madden, kind of doing one of those. So if you're interested in that, let Aaron know, or me, or Keys. Yeah, it was fun. You guys should get along. We got a bunch of stuff that we're trying to do next year even, to kind of, bring us all together. RGR is a family. It's not just Ryan. It's not just me or just Keys or anybody else that's on staff or whatever. We're all RGR, And so we all want to be inclusive and have fun and just do things to bring us together. Tell people about us, bring them in too. Like, we answer questions. Ryan answers questions during the live stream. Let's grow it. Let's grow. Let's Chiefs Kingdom, Rogue Nation. We're all one, baby.
That's right. We are a family, and we do have a crazy uncle that's part of RGR. We won't say which person, but we all know who that is, our crazy uncle here at RGR. But, you know, as with crazy uncles, you got to love them. So anyway, thank you guys for watching today's video. We hope you have a great weekend. Peace out, guys.
Stay safe. Happy New Year.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.